Hello, my name is Adam. I am a student of English, and this is my story. I want to tell you about my life in London and my fantastic teacher. You can read my story and learn English with me. Lesson 1. I go to London. It is a beautiful summer day, and I am traveling on a train. There are two ladies sitting opposite me. I don't know them, but from their conversation, I can tell they are foreigners. I don't understand much of what they are saying, but I know they are speaking English. I also want to speak English, but I am a beginner, and I don't know many words. However, this is a great opportunity for me to practice speaking English. I decide to try speaking to the ladies. I say a few sentences in my basic English, and they understand what I say. I don't know many words, and I speak slowly, but the ladies are kind and patient. I am able to have a simple conversation with them. I tell them that I want to learn English. They are happy to hear that, and they tell me they are from England. They are traveling home from a conference. We speak for about 10 minutes, and then it's time for me to get off the train. While I am thanking them for speaking with me, they give me their address and phone number. They tell me that I can visit them in England if I want to, and then we say goodbye. This is how my journey in learning English begins. After this meeting, I decide to work on my English skills more. I translate texts and watch films in English. I work on my English for 2 hours almost every day. In 6 months, I am able to speak quite well. It is great, but I want to know more. I decide to go to London to study English. In London, I choose a school that I expect to be good. I really look forward to my first lesson, which is on Monday. On my first day at school, I feel both nervous and excited. I meet my teacher and the other students in the class. My teacher is a young lady, and she is very nice. She asks everybody to introduce themselves and say where they are from. Then, the lesson starts. Our teacher asks us how we have studied English before and what we think is the best method to learn English. I tell my teacher that I like translating songs and other texts, but I don't know what the best method to learn English is. Our teacher says that she will teach us a very effective method, which is based on using the language. Our teacher tells us that we will not have to study, and we will not use textbooks. We will immerse ourselves in the language. It is great for me since I don't like studying and I don't like textbooks. Then, we talk about what we should focus on when we learn a new language. Our teacher tells us that we need languages for communication. Languages help us express and understand ideas. So, when you learn a new language, the best way to learn is to use it for exchanging ideas. This is what we will do in our course. Most of the time, we will speak. You spoke a lot when you learned your native language as a child, and you should speak a lot when you learn English as an adult. Unfortunately, many students spend a lot of time memorizing new words or learning grammar rules. They don't use English for speaking. They study about the language, but they don't use it very much. Of course, you need to learn new words and new grammar, but you don't actually have to study them during this course. I will show you a very simple and effective way to learn new words and grammar. I like what our teacher says. Our lesson continues. We talk about our hobbies and what we do in our free time. We speak in pairs or with our teacher. It is great, and we speak for the entire lesson. I enjoy it so much. I have never spoken so much English during one lesson in my life. I have never learned this way before. I am happy, and I look forward to the next lesson. When you want to learn English, use English for communication. I go to school on Tuesday again. One of the students asks a question that is interesting to me. She asks, "What is the best way to learn new words?" Our teacher says that there are many things you can do to learn new words. I will tell you what is statistically the most effective way to learn new words. It is reading. When people read while they learn a new language, they learn twice as fast as people who don't read. It is good to read for at least 30 minutes every day. I want to show you what you should do if you want to get the maximum gains from reading. First, it is very important that the book or text you read is interesting to you. It is important that you enjoy reading. The book can be a nice story, or it can have some useful information for your job or your hobby. Don't read a text that isn't interesting to you. It is also good to read a text in which you know most of the words. When you don't know many words, you can get frustrated. You always want to enjoy everything you do while using English. It is good to choose a text that is interesting and also suitable for your level. When you read the text and see a word that you don't understand, you get a dictionary and look up the word. Then you continue reading. You don't have to write the word anyway. You don't have to make a list of new words, and you don't have to try to remember the word. You only focus on understanding the text. When it is clear to you what the word means, you continue reading. Anytime there is a new word for you, you do the same. Reading also has another great advantage. When you read, you learn new words, and you also learn how every word is connected to other words in the sentence. Then you can see how to link the words correctly. This way of learning new words is very effective. Give it a try, and you will see how fast you can learn new words. Then we continue with the lesson. We speak about the situation in England and the best jobs for students. This is good for me because I want to have a job and do something after my class. I ask other students if they know where I can find a job. They tell me that I should go to a job center. The job center offers a lot of jobs for students. This is good for me, and I am happy that I know where I can find a job. When my day at school is finished, I go to the job center. I don't know what jobs I can do, so I ask the lady at the job center what the best job for a student is. The lady tells me that they have some good jobs for students. She tells me that I can be a cleaner or a waiter in a cafe. I tell the lady that I have no experience doing these jobs. She tells me that my English is good enough to work at the cafe. The training is not difficult, and I can have more chances to speak English than if I were a cleaner. She tells me that I can start my job on Thursday. It is all good for me. I'm happy that I have a job where I can practice English. When you want to learn new words effectively, read for 30 minutes every day. Lesson 3. How to learn pronunciation. On Wednesday, I go to school again. There is one student in the class who is quieter than the other students. He is from South Korea. When our teacher asks if we have any questions for her, this student from Korea says that he has a question. He says that he has a big problem with pronunciation. He knows that his pronunciation is not very good, but he doesn't know how to improve. He doesn't speak much because he doesn't want others to listen to his bad pronunciation. He says that he reads and watches films in English a lot. He understands very well, but he also wants to improve his speaking. He asks if there is something he can do to improve his pronunciation. When my teacher hears this, she says, "Okay, I will tell you something about pronunciation and how to practice it. I will also teach you a great technique that can help all of you become better at pronunciation. First, we have to look at what my students have problems with in pronunciation. When we speak, we have to move our mouths. We have to use muscles in our mouths, we all do that. The problem is that when you speak English, sometimes you use your muscles the same way you would use them in your native language. Then, your pronunciation is different from the pronunciation of native speakers. This happens to many students. Almost everybody who learns English has a bit of a different pronunciation than they should have. In fact, it is not a big problem because usually, people understand what you want to say, even though your pronunciation is not perfect. However, you can work on your pronunciation and make it better. There is a great technique that can help you a lot. The name of this technique is shadowing. The technique is very simple. When you do shadowing, you simply copy the sound that you hear immediately after hearing it. When children learn their first language, they learn it by copying. They copy after their parents again and again until their pronunciation is perfect. You can learn English pronunciation in the same way. This is what you can do. Take some video or audio recordings that are not very fast and that you understand very well. You listen, and you copy what you hear when you hear it. That is all. Then our teacher tells us that shadowing is also good when you are preparing for a presentation you have to give in English and want your pronunciation to be as close as possible to the pronunciation of native speakers. Before the presentation, you can go to a place where you are alone and do shadowing for about 10 minutes. You will see how much it helps you improve your pronunciation during the presentation. This is very interesting to me. I haven't heard of this technique before. When the lesson finishes, I go to the school reception and ask the lady if there are any sports activities at school. I would like to play some sports in England. The lady at the reception says, "Yes, we have a table tennis team and a football team. The football team has training today at 5 p.m. I am very happy because sports are very important in my life. I go to the football team's training and meet a lot of players from different countries. The players are from Brazil, Japan, Russia, Spain, Argentina, and Italy. I like the training. I am very happy that my time in England is starting well. I have a great teacher, and I also have some new friends from my football team. I look forward to tomorrow. I am starting my job. When you want to have good pronunciation, repeat after native speakers. Lesson 4. How to practice speaking. On Thursday, I go to school again. We have a new student in our class. Her name is Monica, and she is from Italy. At the beginning of the lesson, my teacher asks her how her life is going. My teacher knows Monica from a year ago when she attended her class. That was a class for beginners, and it was only for 2 weeks during the summer holiday. When Monica speaks, her English is beautiful. Her pronunciation is very good, and she is very fluent. My teacher is very happy and asks Monica, "Where did you learn English so well? You speak very fluently. What school did you go to?" Monica replies, "I didn't go to school. I learned English at home." She continues, "I used the advice and techniques that you taught us last summer. I did a lot of reading, shadowing, and thinking aloud. I try to think more in English than in Italian. This is how I improved my English. The 2 weeks I spent last summer at your class helped me a lot. You showed me the way, and I knew exactly how to work on my English every day. That's why I wanted to go to your class again. 1 year ago, I was a beginner, and now I can speak English. I want to learn from you again." My teacher is very happy when she hears these words. She thanks Monica for sharing her experience. It is all very interesting to me. I already know about the importance of reading, and I also know the shadowing technique. But Monica also mentions thinking aloud, and I don't know what it is, so I ask our teacher, what is thinking aloud? Our teacher says, it is a very simple and powerful technique, but you have to have strong motivation to learn English if you want to benefit from this technique. It is also good to know that, for some people, this technique is a little bit crazy. However, when you start to think aloud, your English can improve very fast. I say, I have strong motivation. I don't care if the technique is crazy. If it helps, I want to learn it. Can you teach us this technique? Our teacher says, okay, it is actually very simple. You usually think in your native language all day, every day. It is normal. Now, you can start thinking in English instead of your native language, and when you start thinking in English, then you can think aloud. It means that you actually say aloud what you think. That's all. I say, it looks very simple. You said that it is a powerful technique. Why is it powerful? Our teacher says, maybe you can ask Monica. Monica has been using the thinking aloud technique for a year and shared her experience with us. She said that when she first started, it wasn't easy. She began with very simple sentences like, I can speak English, it's good that I can speak English. I want to get better, I need to practice every day, I don't know many words. But I can use these words well. I can express my ideas with these words. I can do this. This is great. These sentences were really simple, but Monica realized that the sentences she thought in Italian were much longer and more complicated, and she wasn't able to say exactly what she was saying in Italian and English. She had to find simpler ways to think in English. Although it was difficult at first, after some time, she got used to it, and thinking in English became natural for her. Then something interesting happened. Monica met a man from Australia who was on holiday in Italy. She was still a beginner, but they started speaking in English. Monica realized that she was able to talk to him without major problems, even though her sentences were still simple and short. Because she had already said these sentences many times before while thinking aloud, she was able to speak more easily. She no longer had to translate from Italian to English in her head like she used to. She felt much more confident using English in conversation. I started to use thinking aloud even more. This technique helped me a lot and greatly improved my ability to express my ideas. I still use it every day. It is truly a powerful technique. Our teacher thanks Monica for sharing her experience with thinking aloud. I decide to use this technique because I also want to improve my speaking skills. Lesson 5. How to learn grammar. After school, I go to the cafe where my job training starts. I don't know what to expect. I have never worked in a cafe. I'm not sure if I can do this job. When I arrive at the cafe, I'm very surprised. It's a modern cafe that sells coffee, tea, chocolate cakes, and sandwiches. My boss is only 25 years old, but she has been working at the cafe for over 2 years. She has a lot of experience and knows everything perfectly. She shows me how to prepare coffee, wash dishes, and handle customers. It's all new to me. I remember only about 20% of what she is telling me, but then she lets me do the work and corrects me when I make a mistake. She is very friendly, and I learn quickly. After the first day at work, I'm very tired. I had to learn many new things, but I'm happy to have a job. The next day is Friday, and I go to school again. One student asks an interesting question. Sometimes when I speak, I am not sure. If I speak correctly, I'm not sure if I use correct grammar. Can you help me? What should I do if I want to learn grammar? Our teacher says, thank you for your question. There are two groups of students. Some study English because they want to be able to speak, and others study English because they want to pass an exam. For each group, there is a different approach. First, I will speak about those who need English for speaking. If this is your case, you don't have to study grammar a lot. When you learned your native language, you also learned it without studying grammar. You can learn English grammar naturally by using the language. The best way to learn grammar naturally is by reading a lot. Books are written in good grammar, and when you read, you will learn grammar in the context of the whole sentence. I also recommend shadowing. When you do shadowing, you practice correct grammar. You do it naturally. You don't have to try to remember anything. You only copy sentences with correct grammar. The second group of students are those who study English for passing an exam. If you are one of these students, I recommend studying specifically for this exam. It might be helpful to get the versions of this exam from past years if they are available and train with them. Of course, your exam will be a little different, but the structure is usually the same or very similar. From my point of view, the versions of the exam from past years are good training materials. Then, I recommend going to the exam only when your results in the training materials are such that you could pass the exam successfully. Did I answer your question? Yes, thank you, says the student. This is good news. I don't like studying grammar. I learn English because I want to be able to speak. I don't need to pass any exam. I am happy that I don't have to study grammar much. In the afternoon, I go to my work. It is my second day, and I can already do a lot of things by myself, but my boss helps me whenever I need it. I see that my work is not very difficult. Also, I can practice English when I speak to our customers. When you want to have good grammar, read a lot. I say that I can already do my work quite well. I say that I am happy when I can speak to our customers. When I speak, one of the girls in the class asks me, "What happened to your voice? You sound very different from what we heard last week. Your pronunciation is very good." I smile and say, "Thank you." I tried to do shadowing on Saturday evening after my work and for all of Sunday. I tried to speak like a native speaker. I know that it is still not perfect, but I also noticed a big change in my pronunciation. Our teacher asks if anybody else tried to practice shadowing. 3 students raise their hands. One of them is the student from South Korea. He also likes this technique. One student says that she tried the technique, but her mouth hurt a lot after 5 minutes of shadowing, and she had to stop. She also says that she wasn't always able to repeat everything. Sometimes it was hard for her to keep up with the speed of the recording. Our teacher says, "Thank you for trying out this technique. If you do shadowing for the first time and your mouth hurts after 5 minutes, it means that you are doing it correctly. Your muscles need to be trained to this new way of speaking. It's like going to the gym for the first time. Your muscles can hurt if they are not trained. If your mouth's muscles hurt, you can take a break after 5 minutes and continue a bit later. With every 5 minutes of practice, your pronunciation should be a little bit better." Shadowing has other advantages. You practice the correct pronunciation in English, and you also practice other things such as intonation, rhythm, and connecting words in whole sentences. I know that at the beginning the recording can sometimes be too fast. If this happens, you can repeat only the first or the last word in the sentence. With practice, you will be able to repeat more. I agree that it is true. On Saturday when I started with shadowing, it was quite difficult for me, Yet by Sunday evening it was quite easy to repeat what I heard. Our teacher asks other students if they know how many words they know in English. It is interesting to see that nobody knows. We know that we are intermediate students, but we don't know how many words we know. I want to know how many words I know. I do the test immediately. I see that I know 2,100 words in English. Most of the students know between 2,000 and 2,200 words. Only Monica and the boy from South Korea know 2,500 words. Lesson 7. How to handle mistakes. On Tuesday, I go to school again. One student asks our teacher an interesting question. She says, "I would like to practice speaking with people around me, but I am afraid of making mistakes." Our teacher continues, "When you start learning a musical instrument, you don't expect to play perfectly right away. You make mistakes, you try again, and over time, you get better." The same applies to learning a language. Mistakes are a natural part of the learning process. They show that you're pushing yourself and trying to improve. If you're not making mistakes, it means you're not challenging yourself enough. She encourages us not to focus on the fear of mistakes. Instead, we should focus on expressing our ideas and communicating as much as we can. You should see mistakes as a sign of progress, she says. The more mistakes you make, the more opportunities you have to learn and improve. She also tells us that we shouldn't worry about being judged by others. Most people don't care if you make a mistake, as long as they understand what you're trying to say, she adds. And remember, even native speakers make mistakes sometimes. By the end of the lesson, I feel more confident. I realize that making mistakes is a normal part of learning, and I shouldn't be afraid to make them as I continue to practice English. I also understand that the goal isn't perfection, it's communication and continuous improvement. The student continues, "But I sometimes forget words that I read. I understand the meaning when I see them, but I can't always remember them when I want to use them in conversation. Can you help me with that?" Our teacher smiles and responds, "This is a common challenge, but there are techniques to improve it. One of the best ways to remember words is by using them as often as possible. The more you use a word, the easier it becomes to remember. Also, when you learn a new word, try to connect it with something familiar to you, like an image, a situation, or even a story. The more you link the word to something meaningful, the easier it will stick in your memory." She adds, "Another important technique is spaced repetition. Instead of trying to memorize a word and then forget about it, review it regularly, at increasing intervals. This helps move the word from your short-term memory into long-term memory. There are apps and flashcards that can help with this." Our teacher also suggests that we try to learn words in context, rather than in isolation. When you see or hear a word used in a sentence, it's easier to remember because you understand how it fits in with the rest of the language. It's about understanding the word's meaning, not just memorizing the word itself. I listen carefully, realizing that my struggle with remembering words is something that many people face, but there are effective strategies to overcome it. I feel more confident about being able to remember and use new words. When you are able to recall the word easily and use it in conversation or writing without hesitation. At this point, the word has moved into your active vocabulary, and you can use it confidently. Our teacher continues, "The key is repetition and exposure. You might need to see or hear a word multiple times before it fully sticks. The more you practice using the word in different contexts, the faster it will become part of your active vocabulary. One way to speed up this process is by reading the word in different contexts. For example, if you read a sentence with the word, then try to use that word in your own sentence. The more you use it in different situations, the better your memory of it will be. Another technique, she adds, is to write the word down and review it later. Writing helps reinforce the connection between the word and its meaning. You can also try using the word in a conversation or teaching it to someone else to solidify it in your mind. I feel more confident now. I realize that it takes time to remember new words, but with consistent practice and these techniques, I can make them stick. I feel more relaxed about my progress in learning English. Now that I understand the 5 phases of learning a new word, I don't feel discouraged when I forget a word after looking it up. I realize it's all part of the learning process. The teacher's explanation makes sense. Repetition and exposure are essential. With every new encounter with a word, I'm getting closer to using it confidently. And I know that even though I might not remember it immediately, I'm still making progress. After school, I decide to try out these strategies more intentionally. When I come across a new word, I'll not only look it up but also repeat it in different contexts, write it down, and try to use it in conversation. With this approach, I feel more motivated and less frustrated when I forget words. Our teacher explains that when listening to audio, you should already know most of the words, 95% or more. If the audio contains too many unknown words, it's helpful to read the transcript beforehand and learn those words first. This way, when you listen, you're focused on understanding the message and not on learning new vocabulary. Listening to audio is great practice for getting used to the rhythm and flow of spoken language. The goal is to absorb information naturally, like how we understand our native language. On the other hand, when watching films, the approach is slightly different. You may not always know all the words, but watching a film helps improve your ability to understand spoken English in various accents, tones, and contexts. It's also a fun way to improve your listening skills by hearing English used in real-life situations. The key takeaway is that when improving listening, the main focus is on understanding, not necessarily memorizing new words. Listening to audio materials you already understand is great for building your listening comprehension. Our teacher continues by emphasizing that it's essential to use listening materials suited to your level. For beginners or those with around 2,000 words, books written in simplified English with accompanying audio recordings are fantastic. These books are tailored to help you improve while still being manageable and interesting. For those with a bit more experience, films and videos become an excellent choice. Watching films with subtitles first allows you to understand the context, then re-watching without subtitles improves your ability to comprehend spoken English. Repeating the same movie can help reinforce what you've learned, and you'll notice that with every viewing, your understanding improves. Documentaries and reality shows are also great options, especially if you're interested in particular topics. These types of shows tend to have predictable structures, making them easier to follow. The most important thing, as our teacher highlights, is consistency. Aim for at least 30 minutes of listening practice a day. This way, the more you listen, the quicker you'll pick up new vocabulary and understand more. It's key to stay positive by focusing on what you do understand, even if it's just a little at the start. I struggled with grammar rules and vocabulary. I also found it hard to communicate because I couldn't form sentences properly. But then, something changed. I remember the moment when I realized how important English could be for my future. I saw how many opportunities it could open for me, whether it was for travel, work, or meeting new people. That moment really sparked my interest in learning the language more seriously. Our teacher asks the class what their motivations were to learn English, and we all share different stories. Some of us started learning for travel, some for exams, and others because they wanted to understand movies or songs better. It's interesting how everyone has their own personal reason. The teacher explains that motivation plays a huge role in language learning. It can be the fuel that keeps you going even when things get difficult. It was illogical to me. I tried to remember words, and I tried to learn grammar, but it was very hard. When I finished high school, I was still only a beginner. I couldn't speak English, and I believed that I would never learn this language properly. I simply believed that English wasn't for me. Then something happened. I always liked music, and when I was 20, I started listening to the Beatles. I wanted to understand what they were singing, so I started translating their songs. Slowly, I understood more and more. Then I met two ladies from England on a train. We had a simple conversation, but it helped me very much. I started to believe that I could learn English. From that moment on, I worked on my English almost every day, and I was getting better and better. Then I decided to go to England to improve my English. Here, my teacher thanks me for sharing my story. She also tells me, "Here is something very interesting about your story. You are still you. The first, you didn't have the motivation to learn English. The second, you had a motivation. You wanted to understand songs. You can see that motivation is very important. When you have it, you can succeed. When you don't have it, it is very hard to be successful." Then our teacher asks everybody in the class about their motivation to learn English. The stories are very interesting. One girl's motivation is to be able to read historical books in original English. One student wants to be a professional tennis coach in England. He wants to speak perfect English before he starts his career as a coach. One woman wants to work for a big international company, and she needs English for her job. I can see that everybody has some kind of motivation to use English in real life or to get information from books. At the end of the lesson, our teacher asks us if we like English. I say, I didn't like English in high school, but now I like it a lot. I can see how useful it is to know this language. Our teacher says, this is another important factor when you learn a new language. It is good when you like something connected to English. It can be people, music, culture, or history. If you like English, it is easier for you to learn it. If you want to be able to communicate in English, it is good to know 3,000 words or more. If you don't like English, it is more difficult to find the time to practice enough to reach the level of 3,000 words. I can agree with my teacher. Now, I like not only the Beatles but also my teacher and my boss, who is also English. I also enjoy English humor. Now, it is much easier for me to find time to practice English every day, even on Saturdays. I go to play football for my school team. We have some very good players on our team, and we win 3-2. We are all very happy. After the match, we go to the pub and celebrate our victory. When you want to learn English, you need to have the motivation to use English every day. Lesson 11. How to learn 3,000 words. During the next lesson, one of the students asks our teacher this question. You told us that it is good to know 3,000 words. Where can I find these 3,000 words? Which are the most important ones for me to learn? My teacher replies, you can Google a list of the 3,000 most frequent words in English, but such a list will not help you much. When you start to learn words from this list, you will be learning words outside of context. You will learn words that are not connected to any story, and you won't learn what other words are connected to these words in sentences. You will learn these words in your short-term memory. This system works only for some words. These are basic words that describe things and people around us. For example, mother, father, apple, blue, orange, dog, cat, book, car, house, city, boy, girl, water, cinema, or paper. These are words that represent something you can easily imagine. For instance, when you learn the word dog, you know immediately what it is. You have a clear idea in your head of what the word means. However, when you try to learn words such as appreciate or suppose, this system doesn't work as well. This is a problem many students experience. They start studying by using lists of words. This method works at the beginning, and they believe they can learn English this way. What they don't know is that when they reach the level of 1,000 words, they need to start using a different system. If you want to learn words at a higher level, you have to learn them from whole sentences. If you understand the meaning of a word in the context of a sentence, you will learn the word much better. You can learn words from lists, but there is usually a limit to how far this method can take you, and that limit is about 1,000 words. Additionally, this way of learning is very slow. There are much better methods, which we have already discussed, such as reading. For beginners, the best book to start with is Robinson Crusoe in Simple English. There is also an interesting rule that applies here. Every word that is important to you will come back into your life again and again until you learn it. This is very similar to the way we learn our own language as children. We don't study from lists of words. Instead, we just use the language, and important words keep reappearing in our lives until one day, we know what the words mean. We continue learning new words this way throughout our lives. For example, the verb Google is a relatively new word in many languages. We didn't learn this word from a list of vocabulary. When you first heard the word Google, you probably didn't know what it meant. Then, you heard it again and again because it was important to you, and over time, you understood its meaning. You can forget about lists of words. Instead, learn new words by reading stories and other interesting texts. When you use English frequently every day, you will soon know 3,000 words. Does it make sense? The student asks. Yes, says the teacher. Thank you. After school, I feel inspired to continue learning. I go to work. I already know my job very well, and things are starting to feel automatic. I am happy that I understand my customers. It is not very difficult because the conversations are usually very similar. Our customers typically want coffee or sandwiches, so the words they use are usually the same or very similar. My confidence grows, and sometimes I even have longer conversations with our customers. Everything is going well, but then something happens that is a little shocking for me. Lesson 12. How to improve your accent. On Tuesday, while I am at work, something interesting happens. Two customers come into our cafe, a husband and wife. The man starts to speak to me. I know that he is speaking English, but I don't understand him. I can't figure out what he wants. I think he is asking for something we don't have, so I call my boss. She speaks with the man and sells him 2 coffees and 2 of our regular sandwiches. I am surprised. When they leave, I go to my boss and apologize, explaining that I didn't understand the man. She tells me that it is okay. She says that this can happen when people speak with an accent that is new to us. She also explains that the pair was from Scotland. The next day I go to school and tell this story to my teacher. I tell her that I felt really stupid for not understanding our customer. I wasn't sure if my English was good enough for my job. I started to doubt myself. My boss was okay with it, but I still needed some help from my teacher. I wanted to know what I could do in these situations. My teacher says, I understand. You are used to the English spoken in London, but you aren't familiar with the Scottish accent. Your ears aren't trained to listen to the Scottish accent yet. All you need to do is listen more to Scottish English. You need to train your ears to this accent as well. She continues, what happened to you can happen to anyone. Even when you already speak English at a certain level, if you go to a country where people speak with a different accent, you shouldn't be surprised if you don't understand them at first. She reassures me, it's okay. It usually takes about 2 weeks to get used to a new accent. Don't think that there's something wrong with you if you don't understand a new accent right away. With practice, you can train your ears to understand any accent. Then I ask, so, what can I do to understand the Scottish accent? I don't live in Scotland. Our teacher replies, you can watch films with Scottish English or watch sitcoms from Scotland. If you do this regularly, you'll soon be able to understand. I tell her, thank you. After school, I go to work again. At about 4 o'clock, 2 interesting customers come to our cafe. This time, they are not from Scotland, they are foreigners. They want to buy some coffee. The customers are 2 ladies, and it's clear that their English is very basic. My boss is serving them. When she realizes that they don't speak English very well, she does something very interesting. She adjusts her English, using very simple sentences with only 3 or 4 words. I can see that the ladies understand her. They buy 2 coffees, 2 sandwiches, and 2 cakes. They are happy, and my boss is happy too. When the ladies leave, I tell my boss that it was very nice how she changed her English so that the 2 ladies could understand her. My boss says that sometimes she has to speak in very simple English. It doesn't matter whether the customers speak English well or not. They're our customers, and we have to do everything possible to make them feel comfortable. If they feel that they can speak English here, they can come to our cafe every day. I think that our boss is a good businesswoman. She does everything possible to make our customers happy. It's true that we have a lot of customers. Our cafe is busy every day. Lesson 13. What you can do at your level. The next day at school, I tell my teacher about my experience with my boss and the 2 ladies who didn't speak English very well. Our teacher says, great. Your boss must be a very clever woman. It's true that you can communicate with everybody. Even people who speak English very well can have a conversation with those who are just beginning their journey. Today, we will talk about different levels of English and what you should be able to do at each level. Let's start with the lowest level, which is 1,000 words. At this level, students can speak about basic things from everyday life. The speaking is very limited, but it is already possible to communicate slowly for a short time with people who want to speak with you. Your sentences are short, usually containing 4 words. If the other person also speaks in short sentences, you can have a basic conversation. When students move to a higher level, which is 2,000 words, conversations become easier, and the sentences are longer. This is the level that most of you in this class are at right now. At the 2,000-word level, you should be able to speak about many things from your life. You can talk about your family, hobbies, job, and traveling. Sometimes, however, you may have difficulty when you want to engage in a deeper conversation on certain topics. Despite this, this level is usually sufficient for everyday use of English. If you want to have deeper conversations on many topics, it's good to know 3,000 words. Your goal as a student of English, who wants to speak English well, should be to learn 3,000 words. Of course, you can learn more than 3,000 words. The more words you know, the easier it will be to communicate. It will be easier for you to communicate in English, but 3,000 words is usually enough for communicating about almost everything. I think that the two ladies at your cafe knew about 1,000 words. Your boss adjusted to their level and had a basic conversation with them. After school, I go to work. The two ladies come to our cafe again, and they bring two of their friends. It is my turn to serve them. I speak to them in simple, short sentences, and they understand me. This is great. They tell me that they are tourists from Japan. They also tell me that they like our cafe because people here understand them. Lesson 14. What to do when you are shy. I go to school again. One student asks a very interesting question. She says, I am very shy when I have to speak English. Can you help me overcome my shyness? Our teacher replies, it's true that when we use foreign languages, it's natural to feel uncertain or shy. We are doing something we are not perfect at, and the possibility of making a mistake is great. I was also very shy when I learned foreign languages. I remember well how I was afraid to make a mistake. When I made a mistake, I felt stupid, and sometimes I even blushed. Now, it's different. I use languages for communication. I care only about communication. You know that I am learning Spanish these days. Embarrassing situations can happen, but they can't stop me from using Spanish. It's true that sometimes I still feel shy when I have to speak Spanish. I also sometimes blush, but I don't care much about it. It's a natural human feeling, and it never lasts forever. I continue using Spanish because I know that only by using it can I improve. I also try to see things as they are. I am a student, and I am on the way to speaking good Spanish. It's not possible to skip several levels in one day. A beginner can't become a perfect speaker in 1 hour. I also see the value I bring to the people around me when I speak some Spanish. I have value to those who speak Spanish. You should see the same when you already speak some English. You can have a conversation with others in English, and that's great. Look at what you already know. You know 2,000 words. You've already gone from 0 to 2,000 words. Appreciate that. Some students have the feeling that to know English means to speak like a native speaker, to have perfect pronunciation, perfect grammar, and to speak perfectly without any mistakes. They think that if they are not doing that, then they don't know English. They are embarrassed because they are not perfect. These students are very hard on themselves, but it's not necessary. You are great because you already speak some English. Continue working on your English, and your shyness will gradually go away. I like what our teacher tells us. I am also sometimes shy. I know that I should practice speaking a lot, but in some situations, I don't want to look stupid, so I don't speak as much as I should. I decide to be a bit braver in these situations and use them to practice more. Then one student says, sometimes I want to say something, but I don't know the word I want to say. Then I stop, and I don't know what to do. In these situations, I feel very stupid. Then the next time when I can speak English, I don't want to speak because I don't want to be in this stupid situation again. Can you help me with this? Our teacher says, when you start to speak English, you have to prepare for one thing. There will be moments when you don't know a word you want to say. In such situations, you will need to learn how to describe the word. This ability is very important when learning a new language. Since you are not a native English speaker, you will probably never know the same amount of words as you do in your native language. I can tell you that you can describe almost every word. You only need to train this skill. You will have to train how to express ideas within the vocabulary you have. For example, if you don't know how to say the word key, you can describe it as a small thing for opening a door. You also describe words in your native language without realizing it. If you don't know the word for something, you just describe it to the other person so that they can understand what it is. You can do the same thing in English, but you need to train this ability. Thinking aloud is a very good technique to use when you want to be able to describe well. Use thinking aloud every day, and your ability to describe things will improve. I am happy that I go to this class, not only because of our teacher, but because there are students from many different countries in our class. Some students are from Europe, some are from South America, and there is also one student from Japan and one from South Korea. This is good for me because the students don't speak my native language. When I speak to them, I have to use only English, which is very good for my practice. Today, we have another new student in our class. Her name is Sophia, and she is from Argentina. At the beginning of the lesson, Sophia says that she thinks she doesn't have a talent for studying languages, but she wants to work hard to improve. Our teacher asks her, "Why do you think you don't have a talent?" She answers, "I think I don't have a talent because my sister learns English very fast, but for me, it is difficult." Then our teacher asks everybody in the class, "Do you think that you have a talent for learning languages? Please raise your hand if you believe that you have a talent." I look around the class, and nobody raises their hand. My teacher smiles, then says, "Now, I want to tell you something. Many people think that you need to have talent if you really want to learn a new language. I agree, yes, you need to have talent if you want to learn a new language. But I also believe that you already have a talent for learning languages. Why do you have talent? You have talent because you already learned one language, which is your native language. You were successful at learning your native language, and you speak that language fluently. All people who are able to learn their native language have a talent for learning languages. Why do many students believe they are not talented? The reason is this: there are people who are super talented. Yes, it is true. These super talented people remember new words very quickly and for a long time. Maybe you know these people. Maybe it's somebody at your work or in your family. There aren't many of these people, but they do exist. I believe that Sophia's sister could be one of them. Learning a new language is fun for these people, and they can do it easily. Sophia says that it is true her sister is better than everybody else. Our teacher continues, "It is true that these super talented people exist. It is a fact, and we cannot do anything about it. And it is not a problem. The problem is that we compare ourselves to these people, and if we don't learn as fast as they do, we think that we are not talented. I want to ask you one thing. Please do not compare yourself to these super talented people. Yes, they are lucky and they have an advantage, but you can be lucky too. And you are super talented at doing other things. Maybe you are more talented than others when it comes to learning how to sing, swim, play tennis, count numbers, cook, or repair cars. People are not all the same, and that is the beauty of this world. Now, you can believe that you are also talented, maybe not super talented, but talented. When you believe that you are talented, learning English will be easier for you. These words from our teacher are very helpful for us. I know that I am talented at playing football and tennis. Now, I know that I am also talented at learning English. It is great. What is also great is that there is a school party in the evening. I really look forward to this party. I know that some girls from our class are going there. I hope that our new student, Sophia, is also going to the party. I have known Sophia for only one day, but I like her a lot. Lesson 16. How to speak fluently. On Monday, I go to school again. Our teacher asks us how the Friday school party was. One student says that the party was great. We had a lot of drinks and a lot of fun. The girls from our class enjoyed the party as well. I enjoyed the party a lot because Sophia was there. I could talk to her, and we danced together. It was all very nice. There were also 2 boys from my football team at the party. These boys were from Brazil. Their English was simple. They could speak only in short sentences, but they were extremely funny. At the party, they made a lot of jokes about life in England, about other players from our team, and about girls from their class. Everybody laughed. Their sentences were very short, with only 3 or 4 words, but they were able to speak fluently when we spoke about the party. I tell my teacher, it was really interesting to see that somebody who doesn't know many words can already speak fluently. I know some students who are at a much higher level and have a hard time speaking. My teacher says, this is really interesting. I can tell you that the 2 boys from your football team showed you what all students should do. The boys used what they knew. They cared only about what was really important, communication. Then one girl asks, so what should we do if we want to speak English fluently? Should we go to parties and make jokes? My teacher says, first, let me explain what fluent speaking is. Many students think that fluent speaking is fast speaking with a lot of words and perfect grammar. But there is a better, more correct definition of fluent speaking. Fluent speaking is speaking without long pauses. Some people can do it with 1,000 words, some people can do it with 2,000 words, but there are also people who know 3,000 words and aren't able to speak fluently. If you want to speak fluently, you have to practice speaking. There is no other way to improve your fluency. Speaking is a physical activity. It is like playing a musical instrument. If you want to play the violin, you need to train the connection between your brain and the muscles in your fingers. When you want to speak well, you need to train the connection between your brain and the muscles in your mouth. If the connection between your brain and your mouth is not often trained, you can't speak fluently, no matter how many words you know. You can't complain that you can't speak fluently if you don't practice speaking often. You can have this experience. You meet a foreigner who wants to speak with you in English. You want to say ideas that are in your head, but you aren't able to do it. You can't find the right words. Then, when you end the conversation and replay it in your head, you realize that you actually knew the right words, but the conversation is already finished. Why do you experience such situations? Because you have little training, and your speaking isn't automatic. It is not automatic because you don't practice it often enough. When you want to speak fluently, I recommend speaking for at least 30 minutes a day. You can speak to a real person. If you don't have a real person to speak to, you can do thinking aloud. It is necessary to really think aloud and not only think in your head. You need to practice the connection between your brain and your muscles. You can do this by thinking aloud. Does it make sense? Yes, says the girl. Lesson 17. Summary. The next day, one girl asks our teacher an interesting question. She says, "Thank you for the information you are giving us on how to learn English. Could you give us a summary with some rules on what we can do every day to learn English well?" Our teacher says, "Okay, I will try to give you a simple summary. If you want to speak English well, you need to do 3 things. You have to read, listen, and speak. You already know that what is important is that you do all these 3 activities for about the same amount of time. If you leave one out, then your progress will not be as fast as it could be." From my experience, I can say that it is important to use English every day for at least 90 minutes. You don't have to study, but you should use English actively. Now, I will explain each activity in more detail. Let's start with reading. You should read for at least 30 minutes every day. That's the minimum. Don't read just to study English. Read to get some new information or to enjoy an interesting story. I know that I repeat this information again and again, but it is really important. Then, you should listen to English for at least 30 minutes every day. Again, it should be something that interests you. You should enjoy getting the information. You should start with simple audiobooks or news first, then gradually move to more advanced books and news. When you know 2,000 words, you can start watching films and videos on the internet. Finally, speaking. You already know how important it is to speak when you study English. It is important to speak for at least 30 minutes every day. Of course, the best way is to speak to real people. It can be your teacher, classmates, colleagues, or friends. Try to find somebody who is at your level of English or a little bit better and speak with this person. However, if you have nobody to speak to, with shadowing and thinking aloud, you can also get a lot of speaking practice every day. I use these techniques very often when I learn Spanish. I don't have any native Spanish speakers in my life whom I meet every day. I use these 2 techniques to improve my Spanish. As you can see, studying English is simple. All you have to do is read, listen, and speak. This is all. Now you know how to do it. "Thank you," says the girl. "This is what I needed to hear. You are the best." I am also very glad that the girl asked this question. It is my last day at school, and I needed some kind of summary on what I can do. During the 4 weeks I have spent with my teacher, I have learned a lot. I have also improved my English very much. My teacher knows that this is my last day at school. She asks me if I want to say something to the other students in the class. I say that I was very happy to be a part of this class, and I met a lot of nice people. I give everybody my email address and tell them that they can contact me if they want to. Then I say goodbye to everybody. I am a little sad, but I know that I have to continue with my life. I can't be at school forever. Now, it is up to me to improve my English. I have all the tools I need. Now, it is 1 year after my last day at school. I used English every day and applied the techniques from my teacher. Now I know 4,000 words in English. It is great. I also have a new job. I started teaching English. I teach beginners who know only 500 words. It is good for me because I know that I need a lot of practice as a teacher before I can teach at higher levels. I have one great advantage in my new job. I had a great teacher in London. I learned a lot from her. Now, I am trying to give all I learned from my teacher to my students. I want them to be successful as well. Thanks for watching.